Hello and welcome to the Olfactive Melbourne podcast. I'm your host, Trent Stokes.
And I'm Robin Stokes. We're a husband and wife team passionate about perfume, and we're on a journey to better understand and explore the art of perfumery. We're coming to you today from Melbourne, Australia, and we'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we're recording. They are the Wurundjeri and Bunurong people of the Kulin Nation. We pay our respects to the elders, past and present, and we extend that same respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who are listening to the recording today.
On this show, we interview Australia's premier niche, artisanal and indie perfume brands, from the founders to the perfumers and on to the creatives who take us on a guided journey through a fragrance that best represents their brand. The show is wrapped around a masterclass in which we invite our guests to take us through each stage of the opening, the heart, and the base. The show unfolds in real time, meaning that there is time in between the opening and the heart and the base. And this is known as the dry down. During the dry down, we take the opportunity to deep dive into the perfumer's journey, their brand, their mission, their vision, their values, along with getting a better understanding of some of the technical terms in perfumery, along with how to identify individual notes and accords so that we can more deeply connect with perfumery, and also so that we can better identify the notes that we like and dislike. This allows us to make more informed decisions about the fragrances that we connect with and that we ultimately wear. The show is designed to be both educational and entertaining. So if you like what we do, please like and subscribe and make sure to sit back, relax and enjoy the show. The Olfactive Melbourne podcast is proudly sponsored by Watchvault, Australia's premier destination for luxury and vintage timepieces. Each watch is trusted, verified and ready for its next chapter. Visit watchvault.com.au to discover your next timeless investment. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Olfactive Melbourne. I'm your host, Trent Stokes.
And I'm Robin Stokes. Tonight, we're really excited to have with us Lucy Bradshaw. Lucy Bradshaw is the founder of Tulita. Tulita is a brand that brings together beautiful natural perfumery with ritual to bring out a deep sense of care. Tulita brand is an award-winning Australian brand, and it's inspired by the Sanskrit idea of transformation and rooted deeply in tradition. Lucy's work brings together the art of botanical materials with ritual and meditative practices to create some wonderful mood-enhancing fragrances. Thank you for coming along tonight. We're very happy to have you with us here in the studio, Lucy.
I'm so delighted to be here with you both. Thank you for having me.
Lucy, it'd be fantastic if we just kicked off with a very high-level introduction to your brand. If you could tell us what inspired the name Tulita, and where are you based and how long Tulita has been in existence?
Well, you did such a beautiful intro, Robin. But Tulita is really what we're looking to create is the most luxurious and the most sophisticated fragrances possible, but using 100% plant-based ingredients and to do it in the most ethical and sustainable way possible. So we're sort of really going and challenging this notion that naturals can't be luxurious. We really want to take that head on and just say, yeah, they actually now can be just as luxurious, if not even more. But really the really sort of like emphasis of what we do is we're mood enhancing fragrances. So each of them are crafted to be balancing the individual chakra energies. And that's where the name Tulita comes from. Tulita means balanced in Sanskrit. And it really is this fusion of botanicals, crystals, affirmations, all coming together to balance the chakra energies. So we're based here in Melbourne. We're made in Melbourne. And we're really embrace that Australian made quality in everything that we do.
Fantastic. This is certainly a first for us. We've never encountered a mood-enhancing fragrance before, so we're really looking forward to the episode here. Now, Lucy, I believe you've brought a fragrance on with you to feature today. Now, we've got both watchers and listeners. So for our listeners, which fragrance have you decided to bring on, and why have you decided to feature that particular fragrance today?
fantastic. So I've brought Agati, and I chose Agati, I guess, for a few reasons. Firstly, it's our bestseller, so it's a really wonderful one to share because it's really loved by the Tulita community. It's also the first of the chakras, so it's really working to balance the root chakra. So I think it's always a wonderful place to start because it's, really the base and we work our way up. It's also our most awarded fragrance, so I think it's won nearly 8 awards just on its own, which is absolutely fantastic. All of our fragrances are genderless, but I think the feedback we get a lot is that Agati is the one that many couples share in the bathroom. That, I love the stories that we get of, someone's bought it and their spouse steals it. So it's a really great fragrance for us, and it's become quite a symbol of Tulita.
Fantastic.
That sounds amazing. So what we're going to do now is we're going to apply Agati. So I'm going to just grab some blotters. We're going to put it on both the blotters and on our skin. That will just allow us to get a fully rounded, well-embodied experience. And so let me do that now. I'll just...
I'll do the same over on my side.
Good stuff. And it's really important that we do get that well-rounded experience. Obviously, skin chemistry does play a little bit of a part in terms of how we experience our fragrance. Also, body heat can, get us traveling along the journey either a little bit faster or a little bit slower. And quite often on our blotters, the fragrance tends to evolve a little bit slower. So we like to get that really well rounded experience. Now, we are going to lean on you pretty heavily through the show to guide us
That's
through.
what I'm here for.
Fantastic. So we're going to get you to guide us through all of the opening notes, but we are an educational podcast. So before we lean on you to take us through the opening notes here, and it's already hitting me, I can't wait to explore. But we just want to explain what opening notes are for people who are maybe a little bit new to perfumery. So when we think about how perfume is constructed, traditionally, perfume is constructed in a pyramid. So we refer to this as the perfume pyramid or the fragrance pyramid. Our opening notes sit at the very top of that pyramid, while our heart notes sit in the middle and our base notes sit at the very bottom. Our opening notes are made up of aroma molecules that are both light and somewhat volatile. And that means that those notes surface to the fragrance first, but they also dissipate the soonest. They tend to give us a brief introduction to the fragrance and make way for the heart notes and the base notes that are yet to come. So it's a bit of an explanation for how opening notes are designed and what they're designed to do. So now, with all of that said in that intro, Lucy, why don't you guide us through what we're actually smelling here in the opening?
Beautiful. So exactly as you explained, we really I get those top notes that start to come through first. Obviously, straight off the bat, it is quite a rich and earthy, woody fragrance. But the top notes that we've really introduced to give it a little bit of freshness is that you start to get a little bit of that basil that's coming through, a bit of bergamot, there's some ginger, there's some violet leaf, there's a tiny bit of black pepper. So there's some of those top notes that are starting to come through. And how you beautifully explained, those top notes are really what sort of helps to balance those rich, earthy woods that really start to ground the fragrance. And this is a grounding fragrance. This is exactly the mood that we're embracing when it comes to the root chakra. It's really bringing that sense of energetically, and in the chakra, it's the energy center that's bringing safety and security, it's protection, and really that there's a lot of warmth embodiment with the woody notes, but we really need these sort of like top bright green notes to help balance it. So they're those first opening notes that we're starting to get a hint of.
Very fresh, but woody in the opening. It's hard to describe, I guess, through the camera here what's actually going on in terms of it smells calming. It's got that immediate sort of calming sense to it. That's certainly what I'm getting. I'm certainly starting to feel quite relaxed now. So
yes, and also very green. I feel like it's got a greeniness.
Absolutely. And that greenness is really coming from, I think we first get that bergamot, which is a really beautiful citrus. It's quite a complex and sophisticated citrus, I would say. It's can be often described as somewhere between orange and lime, but yet a lot more subtle than either of those two citruses. It has a little bit of, slight notes of floralness that come through in the bergamot. And then you get the green notes of the basil, the violet leaf that really help to sort of counter it. And I think that, that calming quality is what I almost wanted it to encapsulate was two things. I guess a bit of a warm hug, which, is that sense of protection, that security, that calmness. And there's some beautiful notes that bring that warmth and that hug-like quality that we can talk about in a minute. But the greenness that you're smelling is really, really important to the fragrance, not just to help balance the words, but we really wanted it to make it feel like you were walking through the forest floor and that you were getting not just those dry woods, but some of those more sort of like green and mossy and fresh notes that you get in that fresh forest. And I think as soon as we start to visualize a forest, it's that instant calming and relaxation quality, and that those green notes are really important to play its part in the fragrance.
Mm. It's beautiful. I'm very curious to learn a little bit more about violet leaf because it's not a note that I'm all that familiar with. And it'd be great to hear from you. How do we smell the violet leaf in the top notes?
Yes, I mean, it's a wonderful quality because the violet flower itself can be quite powdery. The leaf extract is quite different. It has almost like it's very, very green. It has a really beautiful sort of like fresh herbaceous note. It's probably one of the freshest notes that we're getting, whereas the basil is green and it does some more sort of like peppery, slight warm, spicy notes, whereas the violet leaf is almost cucumber-esque. It's very light and fresh. So very different to the flower, which is the wonderful thing about nature. When we take different parts of the plant botanical, and we can get really different qualities out of it. But it's the freshest. So how the violet leaf plays and interacts with the bergamot is one of the most interesting facets almost in that top note quality.
Fantastic. What about the black pepper? How do we really sense it? I guess when I hear black pepper, I'm thinking, hey, this is a black pepper that I'm sitting on my kitchen table that I put on my food, and I'm not quite getting that type of black pepper coming through here. So how am I detecting that in the fragrance here?
Yeah, I think the black pepper sort of gives it's a bit more. It's starting to play into balancing out some of the heart notes as well. It gives it a little bit of that sort of like warm, spicy qualities like the ginger does as well. And that was a really important quality because there's some of that warm notes that are important for that hug-like feel, that comforting feel. It's a very high quality black pepper that we're working with. So it's, gives it that warmth, I think is really what it starts to elevate in. And I think, one of the things that I would say is that our perfumer is so incredibly skilled. I mean, she is award-winning. I think the way that we've been able to achieve the level of like sophistication and complexity out of using 100% plant-based ingredients is because how well she's balanced everything. Yeah. It's almost hard sometimes in particularly Agati. In some of our other fragrances, they're a little bit more heroed into one particular note. But I think everything is so like interacting and balancing and dancing so beautifully together that it's almost hard to detect one thing before the next starts to open and evolve. So it's really hard in Agati to pull one thing out.
Yeah, pick the individual sense. It's very, very well blended. Unless you told me what was actually in this, I would actually struggle. But being a beginner to fragrances, there's certainly some things that stand out to me here. Certainly the bergamot, I'm cutting through here.
The same with ginger. Like even before I started, I really got into fragrances. Of course, I still enjoyed fragrances, and when I've sort of gone back and looked at them, what did I like when I was younger, and what did I like before I sort of went a little bit crazy. I have often picked fragrances that had a bit of ginger in them. So there must be something about the energy or the brightness of ginger that attracts me.
Yes.
But I can't particularly pick it out in a lot of fragrances.
Yeah, I think it plays a really beautiful partner in crime with the black pepper. But I love that you are drawn to ginger because it's a very energizing botanical, which is a wonderful one to work with, and it gives it that warmth, and that starts to really layer in depth. Even though we're still in the top, we're starting to really anchor into some really beautiful deep notes that have longevity on the skin. So the ginger is really a wonderful botanical for that, grounding but energizing. So it really has a nice position between the two.
Fantastic. Now, I think it's a really amazing opening. Green, warm, comforting, relaxing. I think that we've really set the tone here for a wonderful experience as we move through the show here.
Yes.
Now, during our opening sequence, we explained to our viewers that the show does unfold in real time.
Yes.
So there is some time between the opening and the heart, and then the heart and the base, and we refer to this as the dry down. So it's going to take a little while for those volatile and lighter aroma molecules to start to dissipate and for those heart notes to start to appear. And that does give us a bit of an opportunity here to start to get to know you a little bit better, Lucy. So we want to know a bit more about you. And my first question for you is, what got you into fragrances in the first place?
Great question. Well, I guess I've been in fragrances for quite a long time. So my background is I've worked in the beauty industry for 16 years. I was based over in Paris, and I was working for some incredible luxury fragrance houses, beauty houses, in the product development team. So I'm not a perfumer. What perfumers do and the skill that they have is not a skill that I possess, but I was more working alongside in the entire product development process. So creating concepts, developing the pitches, the bottle design, and also working in makeup and skincare. So my background is really deeply in that, and wonderful to really understand how a product sort of is curated from a thought bubble all the way to a bottle that's sitting here in front of us. And I then came back to Australia and stayed in the beauty industry, but a lot more in sort of the marketing and sales and strategic and management side of things. Which I absolutely loved, and I really, really enjoyed it, and have a huge passion for the beauty that the beauty industry actually invites into our daily lives. I guess parallel to that is that I also went on a little bit of a soul quest of life. What is our purpose? What is, the meaning of life? I don't know if that happened, if it was like a midlife crisis that just happened to be way too early. But I went on my spiritual sort of deep dive and became a yoga teacher, and really started to lean quite heavily into my yoga teaching. And I was doing it alongside my beauty sort of corporate life, and they were bringing me great balance and great joy. And I guess it's through the my teachings in yoga that I really sort of became very drawn to chakra energies. And I was starting to fuse a lot of the practices into my classes, and just seeing the most beautiful, profound impact that it was having on the energetics of my students. And I was bringing in, essential oils, I was bringing in crystals, I was bringing in affirmation, and really dedicating our classes into an asana practice and meditation around each of the individual chakras. And I guess that was like this light bulb moment of, just this feeling that these people have on any sort of like conscious or subconscious level. What if more people had access to that? And I think that we just, in this, wonderful, beautiful, chaotic universe at the moment, where who doesn't need a little bit more connection back to self and a moment to connect back into nature? And that's exactly what I guess the vision of Tulita is to bring those layers of like connection back to self and moments of really coming back into purpose. And so that was really sort of the moment I was like, I really think that, fragrance has just such an amazing ability to transport us. And, I can go a little bit deeper into how scientifically it works on a mood enhancing quality, but scent is just incredibly powerful where it operates within the brain. And, when we start to embody crystals, that's it just takes on a whole new dimension. So that was really my pathway into the industry, is that I was sort of there, but, now I'm in a 100% plant-based space. And that was really led by my own fertility journey and just wanting to go all natural in a lot of my, cleaning products, eating habits. Everything was starting to sort of shift in that way. And I started to read a lot about what's contained within fragrances. For your listeners that aren't aware, fragrance is the only category in all of health and beauty that's not required to disclose their ingredient list, which means that it can be a bit of a black hole about what's in it. And that just sort of got me really ticking and going, okay, I wonder if we could actually just completely burst open the doors and, invite full transparency, and let's print our ingredient list, and let's go 100% plant-based, and let's go as organic as possible. And yeah, I guess I'm just sort of on this little quest to, prove that it can be done.
Fantastic. I think it's really important that we focus on mindfulness and coming back to self, particularly in today's modern world, right? Everything is designed to distract you from self, and thinking inwardly is all about distraction. So I absolutely love that about Tulita. And there's a lot to unpack in everything that you've just said there. But let's stay with the start of the journey.
Yes.
Well, look, I mean, what you've just told us, Lucy, to me, it just sounds like, as you say, you were on a bit of a quest, and everything just sort of flowed from the beginning all the way through, all your loves sort of combining into, figuring out that it's time to create your own brand. But tell us about that moment when you decided when Tulita was born, I guess.
Yeah, I think it was just, I always think that sometimes we need to get out of our own way. And it was just like this perfect collision of, I guess, three worlds. It was like my background, my experience, my own personal journey in having babies and children, being really conscious about what was going on my skin, and just what I was seeing in the yoga studio. And so it was just this perfect light bulb moment of like all three things were integral to one another to bringing Tulita to life. And I do think it's sort of like this perfect fusion, as you say, of all my life experiences coming together and creating something that, in my personal opinion, is so unique. There's nothing like Tulita, and that's why I love it so much. And I think it resonates with a lot of people.
So the focus here is on being 100% naturally derived and all natural. And you've pointed out you've gone on a journey because there are those potential dangers there with some of those things that are hidden in our products. And you quite rightfully pointed out that in the fragrance industry, we don't necessarily disclose everything that is in our ingredients list. But what are some of the particular concerns that you have with putting particular synthetics onto your skin? What are some of the dangers that might be potentially there?
I mean, there's quite a long list. I think that there's a lot of research that's now going into what's contained in fragrances. There's carcinogens, there's parabens, there's heavy metals, there's aluminiums. I think the one that we're starting to talk the most about is the hormone disruptors or the endocrine disruptors such as phthalates. And I think the big question I often get asked is like, well, if it's so damaging and if it's so harmful, why is it even being allowed to be in the fragrance? And I guess the answer is not a simple one, but it's, that is the particular ingredient that gives longevity to synthetic fragrances. It's really what makes the fragrance bind to the skin and last and last and last. And quite simply, that's what most people want their fragrance to do. They want to spray it in the morning and they want to come home 16 hours later and to still be on their skin. And I think the typical notion has been that natural fragrances don't have the longevity. And I think it really comes down to the craftsmanship and the quality of the ingredients. And, I think that one of the reasons why we're so loved is that we have incredible longevity naturally. It's just harder to do and it's more expensive to do, but it can be done. So I think to answer your question, it's probably, phthalates or phthalates, depending on how you like to pronounce it, has been linked to quite a lot of fertility challenges. It's shortening menstrual cycles. It's linked to breast cancer. It's linked to quite a lot of harmful things. It's a very, very, very long list and a lot of studies behind it. So, it's hard. And then the next question I often get is, okay, well, now I know about that ingredient, I'll watch out for it. And then it sort of links back to ingredient lists are not always going to be disclosed. So it's really, really challenging. And then I guess to make it even more hard or more confusing for the consumer is that there's this sort of like huge boom in clean or green, which are wonderful movements. And don't get me wrong, I completely support them. I think they have had an amazing, transition of the beauty industry into thinking more forwardly about what's contained. The challenge with the notion clean for me is it's so subjective. You know, your definition is going to be very different to my definition. Each brand's definition is going to be incredibly unique. And so that means that, you know, what does clean really mean to that brand before they put the label on it? You know, does that mean that they just don't have parabens and they have everything else? Yeah. Potentially. And clean doesn't mean that it has natural products in it. It could still be entirely synthetic. So I think that that kind of led me down into being, you know, 100% naturally derived, 100% plant-based, because it just really eliminates the confusion, in my opinion, and makes it really clear on where we stand.
Yeah, very straightforward.
Yes. Yeah.
I think
not 90, not 80, 100.
We see a lot of this in society, don't we? It's not just in fragrances. I mean, we see a lot of dangerous items that you sort of think, well, why isn't white sugar banned? You know, why isn't tobacco banned? Why isn't alcohol banned? You know, these things aren't necessarily good for you. So, but they exist because, you know, there is some demand, and some people are happy to ignore cancer and ignore some of the detrimental health effects that actually come from some of these products as well. But it's good to be able to make an informed decision, because sometimes there is a bit of marketing guff that comes around with these things.
Absolutely.
And again, referring to food, you might have somebody say that this is diet food, but it just means that actually that, you know, there's no sugar, but there's something harmful in there that's substituting the sugar out. So I love the idea of transparency around the products.
Yeah, absolutely. We recently went through that same thing with food, didn't we?
We did.
Our eyes are wide opened, after some research. So just now following on from that and the natural ingredients, and obviously the beautiful connection to transformation in the chakras, can you tell us a little bit more about the packaging and how you sort of have the activated crystals, which I just find really fascinating, and how you've incorporated that into the brand?
That was not easy. That is a feat in perseverance and manufacturing. The activated crystal is so integral because really the way that we're balancing chakra, and maybe to even very light touch on chakras, they're our energy centers contained within the body. They easily fall out of balance at any given time just because of daily life, daily diet, stresses, environment. And the way that we balance chakras is by a combination of factors. It is plant-based or essential oils, it's crystals, it's affirmation, it's the diet, it's the asana practice, and it's meditation. And so basically what we've worked on is fusing as many of those principles into Tulita as possible. And so the crystal is just so important. And so each of the individual crystals are specific crystals in the Vedic wisdom known to balance the chakras. And I really wanted it to not be like a small crystal inside the perfume. I wanted you to feel it and to hold it and to feel its like vibrational qualities. We activate them in the full moon. It's really, really the part I think that gives me so much joy, because I think we've almost become most known for our crystal packaging, because there's something that's just energetically draws people in straight away. So yeah, the crystal is a very integral part of the chakra balancing that we offer.
Absolutely gorgeous. And I 100% agree that you definitely are drawn to them. And it's funny because I think it is a full moon tonight, if I'm not mistaken.
You're right, yeah.
So the Agati bottle has got, is it a red tiger eye?
Yes, yeah.
Tell us a bit more about that.
The red tiger's eye, I love it for so many reasons. It's a wonderful crystal of protection. So when we're talking about the energetic qualities of Agati, it's back to that feeling of, you know, safety, security, protection. So it's a wonderful crystal for sort of like, you know, relaying off negative energy. But I also love it because obviously this is, you know, the champion of woody fragrances in our collection. And the red tiger's eye often almost is confused for being petrified wood. And I love that because it's just the crystal and the fragrance working in perfect harmony together. So yeah, it's a wonderful, wonderful crystal. and it just catches the light in the most incredible way. It's just, I'm really drawn to it.
So the bottles are gorgeous here, and we can't do the bottles justice through the episode here, just holding them up to the camera. So what we're going to do for our audiences, we'll superimpose those bottles onto the screen so get a better view. And of course, you'll be able to visit Lucy's website to get a better view and even better pick up the fragrances because they're absolutely wonderful. Now, one more question for you, I think, before we head into our heart notes, and that is that your packaging really is about sustainability, and you are involved in the Blue Beauty movement.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit more about the Blue Beauty movement.
Oh, fantastic. So I think it really harks back to my feelings around clean and green, is that wonderful, incredible movements, just a little bit unclear about what they actually are. I was really drawn to the Blue Beauty movement because it's so clearly defined. And it's for anyone that's unfamiliar with Blue Beauty, it's basically, the highest form of sustainability that we have in the beauty industry. It's founded by an incredible woman called Jeannie Jarnot in the US. And she's really clearly listed out everything, and it's going beyond any of the criteria that we've seen before. So, of course, it means it asks to be natural, non-genetically modified, organic. It asks the packaging to be refillable, which we are. It also starts to work more not just to land, but also oceans and waterways, which is why biodegradability is a really important factor. Our formulations are biodegradable. We also work to upcycle, so being able to repurpose and reuse, not just the bottle being refillable, but the crystal cap is also can be reused as a gua sha lymphatic massage tool, which is another little feat in manufacturing. There's a hidden screw inside the cap for you to turn in the handle, but you can also just use it holding the cap as well. We also are completely plastic negative. So we're really, really passionate about this particular topic. The beauty industry is one of the biggest contributors to the plastic crisis, and most of that plastic is ending up in our oceans. There's literally hundreds of millions of tons of plastic floating in our oceans that are causing plastic islands. It's devastating when you see the footage. And so having worked in the industry, I was really, really passionate that that was something that we absolutely had to stand for. And I almost didn't want to do it if we couldn't make it happen. So our cap is aluminium, one of the most recyclable materials on the planet. Obviously, the crystal, the glass. There is this tiny little pipette inside of the bottle that is still plastic, which we are working on. We just could not get it out of the packaging just yet. But what we have done is we work with an organization called Repurpose that basically removes ocean-bound plastic bags and repurposes them into furniture and shipping containers. And we remove 200% of our footprint. So that's how we get our plastic negative certification. But we are also persevering. We will hopefully get it out entirely one day, but 0.05% of the packaging is plastic. And the norm in fragrance can be up to 60%. So, we've massively reduced the footprint and then removing double. So helping clean up other companies' plastic footprint as well. There's lots of other things with Blue Beauty, but it's a very long list. FSC certified packaging, recyclable, giving back using green technology. And I had the wonderful opportunity to meet Jeannie Jarnot last year in the US. And she's like my aspiration dream woman. And she was like, it's amazing because what I invite and why I listed everything was to kind of form a blueprint to try and meet as many, but you've met every single one. That's incredible. And yeah, it's a wonderful way to create, and it's an inspiring way to create as well.
Yeah, fantastic. Someone needs to lead the way here as well, and good on you for setting the bar so high. Imagine what will happen when everybody follows suit and what will happen to the environment. So
exactly right.
Yeah.
Wonderful day.
Wonderful. So
Very inspiring.
I think now we've got some time to transition into our heart notes. I'm keeping an eye on the time. I've actually got a little timer hidden away, and we're probably about 20 minutes or so, maybe a little bit longer into the dry down here. So we should be at the point now where we can start to experience those heart notes a little bit more.
Wonderful.
But before we do,
Yeah, so we're going to revisit the perfume pyramid. And the perfume pyramid, the center of the pyramid is the heart of the fragrance. So this is the heart notes, which is really where the perfume comes into its own and expresses its full character and personality. So let's explore the heart notes now. And so, Lucy, if you'd like to share with us, what can we be experiencing here in the heart notes of Agati?
So here in the heart, you start to get a beautiful predominant cardamom quality that's starting to come through, as well as some cedarwood and cypress. So cardamom is a beautiful ingredient to work with. It has a little bit of that warm, very delicate, spicy notes that we were really loving in the ginger in the top, but it's starting to anchor it down. It has the tiniest little bit of sweetness to it as well, which starts to blend and balance with the woody notes. But from a structural integrity, cardamom is a really wonderful ingredient because it's one of the ingredients that naturally allows us to have longevity. It's a wonderful natural binding agent in binding those sort of more citrus or those lighter top notes to the woody base notes. So it's those sorts of ingredients of really going back to, the original craftsmanship of the way that fragrances were made sort of 100 years ago. Cardamom was their sort of like longevity agent naturally. So it's a wonderful ingredient, not just for its facet of that warm, spicy quality and that slight bit of sweetness, but, how we get that staying power.
It's absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
So you mentioned facets there, and we know that within a fragrance note that we can express certain facets depending on how we actually manipulate the notes. Just interested to know, when you're working with your natural ingredients, are you using whole botanicals, or are you using isolates, or are you using a bit of a combination of both as you're constructing the fragrances?
Yeah, we're using really like the essential oils of the ingredients, of the plant-based ingredients. So it's how we sort of work with those sort of concentrated qualities. But then in some circumstances, say for example in Vicasa, which is our rose heart chakra balancing fragrance, we work with a bit of green technology of using upcycled rose water. So that would be a facet. But for the most part, we're working really with the essential oil itself.
Oh. You know what? It actually is very calming. And I really am feeling that difference now from the beginning of the show to now. It is very much, like you said, like a hug that just envelops you completely, which I'm really loving. And I've always liked woody scents, and I'm kind of curious to know a little bit more about the cedarwood and the cypress. I do find myself drawn to cedarwood at times, but I also like lots of other woods. So I can see that the cedarwood is from the US. Yes. And the cypress is from France. So tell us a little bit about those.
They are beautiful woods to work with because they're not they're not in the base, they're still in the heart. So they're much lighter woods, and they give a fresh quality, but still starting to add all these complex layers. So they're almost like these wonderful weaving building blocks that's giving all this structural integrity to the fragrance. So they're a little bit fresher, but they're incredibly grounding, particularly the cedarwood. In Ayurveda, we really, lean on that cedarwood for the root chakra. It's a wonderful botanical to work with for the grounding quality. They're quite anti-stress, relaxing, calming, and really, really grounding. But they've got those sort of like rich, earthy, but not too overwhelming. There's still a little bit of freshness coming through from both of the cedarwood and the cypress.
Gorgeous.
So you pointed out there that we've got our cedarwood from the US, we've got cypress from France, with the cardamoms from India. Seeing a little bit of a thing here. We're calling out where our ingredients come from, and I don't actually often see this. So I see a notes list, and it's just got the ingredient rather than where they're from. So why is that important to call out?
That's a great question. I really wanted to call that out because for two reasons. I think what I love about talking about where they're from is it's just this almost celebration of the communities that have actually grown and harvested these botanicals. And it's just like this sort of like gentle reconnection to the botanical itself. And, just to pay homage to the fact that, this isn't an ingredient that was made in a lab to make it smell like a cedarwood tree. this was grown, this was cared for, this was harvested, this was cleaned, this was distilled, just to really, recognize that. And secondly, it's really about the transparency that we really love. And as far as we can possibly go in our transparency, the better. So it's really those two things of why I love really celebrating the country of origin of each of the ingredients.
So, Lucy, just to wrap up the hard notes then, if you'd like to tell us what do these notes that we've been discussing, the woody notes, how do they communicate the true heart of Agati?
So, yes, beautiful question. So we're really in this root chakra grounding quality. So we're really starting to go a little bit deeper into that like warmth and that depth that gives us that connection. So those heart notes are really the opening into the groundedness that Agati really envelops.
Beautiful.
Fantastic. So again, as I mentioned at the start of the show, we are unfolding in real time.
Yes.
Now that means that we've got a bit more time between the dry down of the heart through to the base. That gives us ample opportunity to explore some of the wider range.
Yeah.
So I believe you've brought in some of the fragrances from your collection.
Yes.
So what I'd love for us to do is explore each one. Now, obviously, we can't go all the way through the dry down with the other fragrances in the range, but what we'd like to do is spray them out. And then if you can just talk us through what we're experiencing in the opening, and then what we would, I guess, experience in the rest of the dry down that we're not going to experience right now.
Yeah,
So that would be
absolutely.
fantastic. And then we might pick at a few little details as we go. So
That's great.
Now, each one of these fragrances has different qualities. You mentioned that we're moving through the chakras here. So I'm going to leave it to you as an expert here as to where we should move to next. Which fragrance should we start with?
Perfect. So obviously we started with Agati at the root chakra. So then if we move up, we would have typically the sacral, which we don't have our fragrance for just yet. It's in the works. And then we move up one energy center higher, which is the solar plexus, which is our beautiful Mukta fragrance. So this is one of our newer fragrances. Mukta means empowered, and that's exactly what this energy is. So it's really this almost like this battery of the body. It's your empowerment, it's your self-esteem, it's your motivation. It's really that sort of like really positive self-worth. So it's a really wonderful, wonderful quality in its energetics. In Ayurveda, we really work with some really beautiful citrus qualities, and that's exactly what we've really embraced. It's sort of like this very warming citrus. But we really wanted to create a citrus that had incredible complexity to it. Citruses are notoriously difficult to work with in naturals because they're all sitting at the very top of the pyramid. They dissipate really quickly. And how we've really weaved a lot of complexity through is it's a combination of grapefruit that gives it a little bit of that sparkle. Then you've got some green lemon. So it's not that typical lemon. It's got a little bit more of a bitter quality. We've got a jeruk orange, which is a wonderful orange from Indonesia that has a little bit more bitterness to it as well. And then you start to get a little bit of the pepperiness as well that helps to really anchor the citrus. And then if we were to keep on smelling over the next sort of few minutes, even just 10 to 15 minutes, we'll start to get a really wonderful base of magnolia at the heart, which is a really beautiful floral to work with. And it plays such a beautiful play between the citrus and that magnolia flower. Some alemi resin that kind of gives it a very subtle sweetness as well. And then we start to anchor down into some patchouli and some vetiver that really gives it a grounding quality. So it is one of our newest scents and is one of our best sellers as well, actually, because it's just a really complex citrus, which I think is typically citruses can be very like light and airy. For it to have the longevity, we've really anchored a lot of the complexity behind it.
It's uber fresh. It really is. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
So alemi is an interesting one. I'm sure our viewers and our listeners probably don't encounter alemi very regularly in their everyday lives. So I guess how would you describe that particular note?
Yeah, it sort of has a little bit of almost like resiny, ambery qualities, very light amount of sweetness, and it sort of is a little bit of a binding agent as well. So it's sort of like very subtle, but a little bit ambery. It would be how I would describe it.
It's really lovely. I do enjoy this. I feel like I can smell the rose as well.
Yeah, there's a tiny bit of rose in the heart there as well. Yeah, absolutely.
So that's orange. It's sorry, help me with the pronunciation. Jarek orange, is it? Jarek orange?
Yeah.
So what makes this particular orange unique? I think you mentioned it was
very bitter. Very bitter. So it's quite a small orange. So it's not like it's very small with quite a thick peel. And so it's grown in Indonesia, and it just has a little bit of, it has a lovely balance between sweet, fresh and bitter that just adds a really interesting accord when we play with it from a top note. It would be very different fragrance, in my opinion, if it was just a typical orange. But this is where I think the art form really comes out when we're working with plant-based ingredients. Is like there's so many different qualities in nature from even just in one family of how different accords can come through with a Jurek orange versus a typical orange. So yeah, I love working with that. And same with the green lemon, really different,
Well, I mean, it's just something that you don't think of. You think green lemon is a lime, but there you go. I learned something new today as well.
Yeah, very, very balanced.
Yeah.
So that, I guess that the bitterness of that orange sort of offsets the grapefruit a little bit. And while it is quite fruity, it's not super sweet fruity. It's just fresh and light and absolutely gorgeous.
Really. And it's one of those ones where every time you have a sniff, it's got some other, fragrances or smell is coming forward. So it sort of comes back and forwards and evolves as you sniff and smell it.
Yes.
Yeah, you're right about the rose as well. It's starting to come through for me as well, the Turkish rose.
Yes. It plays beautifully with the magnolia as well. Yeah. I'd say I would really describe it as a complex citrus that has warmth and strength to it, which is really the energy that is behind that solar plexus.
Yeah, it's got a deepness that you don't normally get with the citrus, I think, in the top note.
Lovely. Fantastic. All right, which fragrance should we focus on next?
So now we'll keep on moving up into the heart chakra, which is our Vikasa fragrance. So Vikasa means expansive in Sanskrit. So it's really about this expansion of the heart. We're working to a quality that is this love and empathy and connection and joy. And it's really an undisputed rose fragrance, first and foremost. But what we wanted to create was a very modern rose. I think rose can sort of typically be a bit powdery and a little bit harder to wear. But what we created here is something that has some really beautiful fresh top notes, that has that lemon, it has that bergamot as well, that kind of gives it this really beautiful opening that just feels very light and airy. And then we've got a few layers of rose. We've got that Turkish rose absolute in the heart, as well as an upcycled rose water. And this is an ingredient that I love sort of referencing because it plays such an important role in not just our embracing of green technology, of being able to, capture every single part of the distillation process to reduce the waste, but the rose water also gives it the freshness because it doesn't have that same like richness, but it plays and counteracts beautifully with the essential oil, but it has a little bit more of that sort of lighter floral quality. And then we've got some beautiful cedarwood that really anchors and gives it some strength. And, obviously all of our fragrances are genderless. It's a rose that I think, still has a level of masculine energy behind it and really easy to wear, for all genders. So it's a really light and airy. And I would say in the rest of our collection, there's quite a strong sort of embodiment of the scent. Vikasa, just in where it sits energetically and how it's so open, it's a lot of a lighter fragrance. So it is a bit sheerer. It's a bit easier to wear. It doesn't have that same sort of we really wanted to anchor a lot of the other fragrances so that they had the longevity. This one's really light and fresh.
Really beautiful. Definitely got that florally opening, but it's really well balanced out with those citruses, I think. So
and I think describing it as light, you have to experience it because as soon as you get that whiff of it, you almost can feel yourself being uplifted. So it does what you say it does. And yeah, very lovely like
The
that.
power of plants.
Isn't it amazing?
I'd like to, just before I dive into a couple of the notes, because we mentioned upcycling a couple of times, and I want to better understand this concept of upcycling. So I think you mentioned that it's just not wasting the components. Can you just explain it a little bit more?
Yeah, absolutely. So when the rose oil is actually being distilled, it's it's going through like a steaming or a distillation process where water and steam is used. And so often that would just be discarded, and it's just the oil that's sort of taken from the top that is sort of used and highly coveted. And so essentially, very simply, what we're doing is we're reusing that water that had been used in the distillation process that still has a lot of fragrant qualities within it and lends itself so beautifully. And I think we would have a really different fragrance if we didn't have that upcycled rose water in the fragrance itself.
Okay, so typically that gets discarded as part of the process. So it just gets wasted.
Yeah.
Okay, isn't that interesting?
It is. I haven't seen upcycled as a term in fragrance before. This is my first experience with it. So it's very good to know.
Now, there is a note that I noted in the list here, which was the Atlas cedarwood from Morocco. And I noticed that you've also got cedarwood in the heart of Agati.
Yes.
What's the difference between a cedarwood in the US versus the Moroccan? Is there any sort of subtle differences in the notes?
Yeah, so the Atlas cedarwood typically has a slightly more piney quality that gives it a little bit more lightness and freshness. So that's why we've used that particular cedar wood in Vicasa, just to give it that beautiful opening and that open lightness that we love. So not going too heavy in the woods, I think, but being naturally derived and plant-based, we really do rely on woods a lot to give the structure and the integrity and the longevity. But it's just about picking the right ones and sourcing the right ones that don't overpower such a light fragrance.
Yeah, so our woods and our ambers, those are sort of those heavier aroma molecules that provide the lasting power in the base.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Fantastic, and also important as to why you're calling out where those ingredients are from, because it shows that there is a little bit of a difference in those particular fragrances. Any notes that you were wanting to drill down into with Vicasa before we move on to our next fragrance?
Yeah, look, I mean, I'm always interested in learning more, so I'd be curious to understand about the Somalian frankincense, since, I do love a smoky note as well.
Yes, and we have frankincense in Divya as well, which is a wonderful quality. And it's always about just adding a little bit more complexity, I think, that just helps to layer lots of elements. But yeah, it gives I don't detect too much of the smokiness in Vicasa. I get it more in Divya.
Okay.
But yeah, it's a wonderful ingredient to work with.
Beautiful.
It has that really beautiful mindfulness connection as well for a lot of people.
And I noticed that it's got a pink peppercorn as well, which we know is a sparkling sort of quality, which I think you can experience within this fragrance.
Yeah, absolutely. It's got a bit of a sparkly quality to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's we detect the pink peppercorn like close to the top notes, and it does give that sparkling, but also a bit of warmth that starts to come through, which is really important to give that sort of strength that we were looking for in the rose. So, every ingredient has plays its role.
Yeah, fantastic. Really unique fragrance. I love this one.
And what is the crystal that aligns with the Vicasa?
This is the rose quartz crystal. So this is the crystal of love and a positive energy. Yes, it's an absolutely stunning crystal.
Beautiful. Fantastic. All right, which one should we explore next?
Yes, let's keep moving upward, which is moving into the throat chakra or Vishuddha. The fragrance that we have here is called Sasra, and Sasra means flowing. And energetically, this is really about expression, communication, it's clarity, it's speaking without fear of judgment. It's really, sort of this honesty and integrity that we're looking to energetically embody. From an Ayurvedic perspective, we've worked with a lot of really beautiful green herbal notes, but firstly, we sort of wanted to balance those herby notes that we'll come into with some very light fruit notes, but we were looking for fruit qualities that didn't bring too much sweetness. I wanted it to be an incredibly fresh scent, and to really ensure that it still really harness that genderless quality, that it can really be easily worn. So what we've actually worked with here is a little bit of green apple that gives that sort of like crunchy freshness, and some rhubarb that gives a tart fruity quality that again doesn't overpower into that sweet fruity category, but just really sort of opens and creates a lot of intrigue. I've never seen rhubarb personally in fragrance before. Lots of people have a lot of experience with maybe green apple in a fragrance, but the combination of the two just really creates the most incredible opening and really makes way for all of the herbaceous notes that we start to really lean into. And I wanted this one to really feel like almost that garden-esque quality, and then it dries down into a very fresh, clean, almost linen feel in the dry down is what you'll start to experience after a little bit of time. But some of those beautiful green herbaceous notes are really important. So it's our clary sage, it's the geranium. There's a little bit of rosemary in there as well. And it's really, they all individually, they can be a little bit overpowering, but it's how they've sort of actually weaved together to create something that's really intriguing, but it really has that sort of green, crisp, fresh feel about them.
I love how the apple and the basil seem to be working together in that opening note.
Yeah.
You're right, it's not overly fruity. I sort of find myself with fruity fragrances, I love the smell of them, but they're a little bit polarizing, and I tend to not actually want to wear them. I like to smell them, but with this, it's not that big bang of just super
berries and
it's too much. This is just super balanced, and you're right, it's quite herbaceous while being fruity. It's really quite lovely.
This is the fragrance that I think perfumers or perfume connoisseurs are really drawn to, because it is so incredibly unique. Nothing else smells like it, and I think that's really, really hard to achieve in fragrances, because we're often blending wonderful partners in crime together. But I think it's just this, how we've worked with the Ayurvedic botanicals, and not the obvious way that a perfumer would traditionally balance a brief of a herbaceous, fruity, floral fragrance. They would not work with a lot of the things we've worked with, but it's, again, how I think we've created something incredibly unique through the philosophy and the way that we actually come in to approach it. And then, I think the rhubarb is the little magic touch in the fragrance that, really just gives it a little bit of lift and sparkle.
All right, so there is another ingredient within the list here, another note, and it is the petitgrain from Paraguay. So this sounds pretty unique to me. So I'm only really just learning about this particular note, but I believe it comes from the orange blossom tree. Is that correct? And is it the branch?
Yes. Oh,
Oh, look, I'm getting there.
Yeah.
All right, so why the branch of the orange blossom tree from Paraguay?
I know, gosh, that sounds like the niche of absolute niche. Listen, it was my perfumer that really wanted to add that in. I think what she does so well is this understanding and this sort of intuitive sense of what balances and what plays together. So I think it's just about finding these subtle differences between each of the botanicals that you might not actually be able to smell, but it helps to harness and empower other botanicals within it. It's actually quite a common ingredient in a lot of fragrances, but they're probably just not often called out because it's a really wonderful sort of balancing agent.
Yeah. Fantastic. I'm starting to retain some of the notes that we're learning about. So fantastic. Just on that, so you just mentioned that you brief in your perfumer on what you're wanting to achieve. Can you talk to us? I know we're about to explore a few of the other fragrances in the range, but just before we do, what's that sort of process look like in terms of briefing in a perfumer on what you're wanting to achieve?
Yeah, it's a really different process to how traditionally fragrance briefs are sort of like how they come about, where typically, so for example, everyone's sort of like the big trend in fragrance at the moment is vanilla fragrances. So there'd be a lot of fragrance brands out there that would be quickly briefing in a vanilla fragrance. So we don't really follow trends. We what we do is we really start first and foremost with what is the energetic quality of the individual chakra. Very, very blessed that my perfumer is not just, very talented. She's based in New York. She's award-winning. She's worked on some incredible fragrances, but she's quite spiritual. So she really, really understands the qualities of the energetics that we're working towards. So, when we talk about Agati, it's about this, really calming, really soothing, really grounding. So we first start with the energetics. Secondly, we then look to the Vedic philosophy, or what are the botanicals that are used traditionally to help balance those chakras. And so we create a full list, and we try to weave the most potent concentration of those particular ingredients. And then we start playing from there. And that's where the wonderful fun starts, of how we balance and how we create and how we ensure that, especially as we start getting to fragrance number 6 and fragrance number 7, that they're really unique to each other. But it's, I think, a very different way that fragrances are traditionally briefed to a perfumer. And our perfumer just loves us for that, because it's a really fun way to create and quite out of the box and quite different. And I think that's how she's created such wonderful magic.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, we've heard about, sort of briefing a perfumer in with a story. Hey, this is the story I'm wanting to capture, but never the energetics and, the
specific botanical.
Absolutely. It's really unique that this perfumer must be, we can smell that they're very talented.
Very talented, yeah.
Fantastic. Was there any other notes that you were wanting to explore before we move on to our next fragrance?
Let's move on. Yes.
Yeah, fantastic. All right, what are we going to be smelling next?
So the last that we have still in our range of a wonderful collection of 5 fragrances is Divya. So this smells very different to anything else that you have just smelled. So this is the crown chakra. Divya means divine in Sanskrit. And so really the energetic quality of Divya is seeing the beauty in all things, having this wonderful trust in the universe that everything is unfolding exactly as it's intended. And because of this sort of energy sitting at the very top of the crown of the head, I wanted to create this scent that almost had that dizzying sweetness to it. And so what you get here is a really deep jasmine fragrance that has that. It has a level of sweetness to it, but not in that sugary quality. It's really in this sort of coming through with natural florals, but at the same time, it's really beautifully anchored with the frankincense and some wonderful sandalwood qualities coming through as well. And we've got a few top notes that just help to give it a little bit of sort of a twist is what we were looking, something that was able to sort of cut through the jasmine as well. So there's a little bit of mandarin, a bit of bitter orange. There's some cinnamon bark playing in there as well. So again, it's all about finding this very well balanced fragrance, but I would just say that this is a jasmine blockbuster is really what you get.
Yeah, absolutely. I have smelt this before. I'm taken immediately back to a night we spent at Law Perfumery, actually, where I experienced this fragrance. It just took me straight back to that moment. It's got a real hit to it.
Yes.
Definitely jasmine, but not overly floral jasmine.
Yeah, absolutely. I think why a lot of people really love our fragrances is that they carry an embodiment of energy with them, but they're still very easy to wear. There's nothing that's, so incredibly overpowering that it makes it feel like a huge, huge statement. There's something that's very deeply personal about each of the scents that doesn't feel like, how some fragrances, it's sort of like you walk into the room and without saying a word, you've arrived.
Absolutely.
Tulita, we're not really about that. There's something a lot more personal about the connection to the scent. So yeah, it's beautiful jasmine. It has that intoxicating feel, but without it feeling overwhelming.
Yeah, it's very beautiful. As you say, not too sweet, but definitely still a very strong blast. And I didn't realize. So is jasmine? It's connected to. Is it clarity?
Yes, yeah. So it has that mindful clarity to it, to really help us sort of lean into purpose and, being able to, I guess, trust a little bit in the universe that it's unfolding as it's intended, and that's where the clarity comes into. Yeah.
It's interesting because obviously jasmine is a very loved note in perfumery, yet, well, I personally was unaware of that. So it's almost like we're instinctively drawn to these notes. Yeah.
I think sometimes it's like what I love about like this Vedic wisdom is it's, thousands and thousands of years old, and it's been working its magic for thousands of years. And it's almost like this renaissance of being able to come back and embody the incredible power of nature. Yeah. So it's, how you were so drawn to ginger for a certain reason. And it's the same thing with jasmine. There's always a reason.
So there's an opening note here that and again, not really that familiar with, and that would be cinnamon bark. I guess when I hear cinnamon, I think a little cinnamon thing from the cupboard that I use in cooking. I'm assuming it's not the same, cooking ingredients. Is cinnamon bark?
Yeah, the bark just doesn't have quite as much sweetness through it. Because we've got so much sweetness with the jasmine, it was just important for it to not be too overpowering. So the bark just helps us like alleviate a little bit away from too much overpowering sweetness.
Lovely. I'm really glad that you called out here just how wearable these fragrances are. And we need to call it out too, because they are, you are a niche, fragrance house.
Yeah.
And sometimes niche perfumery has a bit of a reputation for being a little bit out there on the spectrum in terms of smell, but that's actually not what you're doing here with your fragrances. You're creating really wearable fragrances that are, natural, sustainable, transparent, and wearable.
And really feel good to wear. That was, it's so essential. They should feel good. They should feel gentle on the skin. They should harness energy. They should uplift you. They should bring you to your greatest vibration. And I really, for me, my vision is to bring as many people as possible into the world of naturals and plant-based fragrances without all the heavy toxins. And so having that, wearability is so important in everything that we do, but creating very uniquely at the same time. So it's always a nice balance.
That's wonderful. What an amazing collection that you've got here.
Oh, thank you.
But we're not quite done because we haven't explored the base yet of Agati.
Yeah.
So I think it's time for us to revisit the base. Okay, so we're going to explore the base, but again, just before we do, we haven't quite left the perfume pyramid yet. So again, we'll revisit our perfume pyramid. As I described at the start, our perfume pyramid consists of our opening notes that sit right at the very top of the pyramid, our heart notes sit in the middle, and our base notes sit right at the very bottom of the pyramid. So while you've got that visual there, and the visual will be popping up on the screen for you now, it forms the largest part of the pyramid for a very good reason. If you think about the base notes are almost the opposite of the opening notes. So rather than being volatile and being light, they're actually quite heavy, and that's where we get that sustainability on the skin. So this is why those notes stick to the skin and they last for the longest, and this is what base notes are all about. It's what stays with us for that longest period of time after the opening notes have dissipated, along with those heart notes there. So with all of that explained, Lucy, what are we experiencing here in our base?
So Agati is a sandalwood fragrance. It is, really at the heart, it is in very rich concentration here. And I think you actually smell the sandalwood straight off the bat, to be totally honest, but it really starts to really unveil itself to its full, beautiful quality. So we're really starting to smell that sandalwood. There is patchouli and vetiver in there as well, but, sandalwood is such an important ingredient for us because sandalwood plays a very important role in Vedic wisdom. It's one of the most highly regarded botanicals for its sense of mindfulness, but it's also the botanical that is, most potent and powerful when it comes to balancing the root chakra. And we just have the most wonderful relationship to our sandalwood supplier. So I was just over there in Western Australia where we source our Australian native sandalwood, and it's just wonderful because the actual supplier plays a really big role in the creation of our fragrances. We have sandalwood sort of dotted through the base notes of most of our fragrances, and having this connection with the grower, the supplier, actually playing a role in the creation and giving feedback onto the scents. I've never seen that in fragrance before, and I think it just kind of elevates how we've been able to really respect the ingredient and everything that it offers to a really whole new level. And obviously it's just wonderful to have Australian native sandalwood. They're an amazing organization. They're actually called Dutjan Essential Sandalwood Oils, and they're 50% Indigenous owned, and they're United Nations award-winning suppliers for ethics and sustainability. So you can imagine why I love them so much. But just, wonderful that they're not next door, obviously from Melbourne to Perth, but, locally and natively grown.
That must have been an amazing experience to go over there and
amazing
spend time there.
Yes, absolutely.
I think this is really important, the sustainability factor, particularly when it comes to sandalwood, with a lot of these ingredients that you list, but particularly sandalwood, because it takes quite a long time for these trees to reach maturity, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, they're sort of harvested at about 20 years is young. Ideally, it's sort of like the 30, 40-year mark is when they're harvested. So that's a lot of time for them to actually grow. One thing I learnt while I was actually out there that I found so interesting is where our sandalwood trees are grown is in the wheat belt of Western Australia. And a lot of this region is experiencing a lot of soil erosion because the wheat has really taken all the nutrients out of the topsoil. So the topsoil is effectively dead. And causing soil erosion. And the farmers and the sandalwood are actually playing a really important role, because the sandalwood, while it's growing, is putting a lot of nitrogen back into the soil that even after it's harvested is there, and it actually sustains a new sort of era for wheat to be grown. So it's amazing just how nature has this ability to sort of self-regenerate that no chemical can actually do. It's the sandalwood trees that put the nitrogen and the nutrients back into the soil and sort of start to reverse the damages of the soil erosion.
So the tree growing is sustainable, the soil is sustainable, and the communities that are managing the trees are benefiting from this as well, which is absolutely fantastic.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. I love sandalwood in the base of a fragrance. It's really just gorgeous. Very, very wearable. I think this is probably one of the questions that we haven't asked you about Agati yet, but is there a particular sort of seasonality to this fragrance, or a particular occasion in which you might want to pick this up and wear?
Yes. I mean, the way we've created Tulita is really to wear them based on your mood. And what we mean by that is it's either about harnessing and lifting a certain mood that you're looking for, or helping to balance one. So, for example, Agati, I would really invite it if moments of stress, anxiety, or you're looking for more cocooning, calming qualities. That all being said, a lot of people love it during winter because it's that warm hug, it's the warmth, it's that beautiful cardamom and the ginger that just lends itself really beautifully to more cooler months. But yes, they really are typically designed and crafted for the mood, and whether that calming quality calls in a different season outside of winter, they're going to really offer wonderful qualities. But it's a very sophisticated scent is how I would really describe Agati. It's very, it has that sort of evening elegant quality to it, I think, as well. If we sort of think about typical times and seasons and moments that, fragrances are typically worn, it has a very beautiful sophistication to it.
And you mentioned that the sandalwood and the woods help with the longevity. Just curious, obviously it is plant-based, but how long do we normally expect in terms of longevity with the fragrance, and obviously take into account that it's different for everyone?
Yes, absolutely. So we say that 2 years shelf life, sort of from once you've opened. I would say that from sort of the 12, 18 month, and certainly towards the back end of that 24 months, you will start to experience a little bit of evolution happening through the fragrance. So those top notes, just like on the skin, it's the top notes that dissipate first. The same thing is happening, but just over a longer period of time in the bottle. So you might just start losing a bit of the greenness. The basil, that bergamot might start to become a little bit fainter, and the base notes start to really lift and become more predominant. And that just creates a very different fragrance. It's still really, really beautiful. I've got an Agati at home that's an original 2-year Agati, and I love it because it's almost got more. It's started to lean a little bit more into that smoky, sweet, woody notes, which is coming through with the patchouli and the vetiver as well. So, yeah, I mean, it's not to be thrown out at 2 years. It's just might be a little bit different. It might start to go a little bit darker as those woody notes start to really enrich and into the fragrance as well.
It's certainly something that it is valued quite often in what we call the fragrance community or fragcom.
Yeah.
Yeah, as you get deeper and deeper into fragrances, and if you're watching the show, you probably are. But going back and finding these batches that have matured over time, it's maybe a little bit like wine. We like to see a little bit of an evolution in the fragrance, and that might be what you enjoy from it as well. But it's certainly just another experience, another way to enjoy the fragrance.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fantastic. Well, I've sort of I love the intention around, it directing how you feel. So, Agati being a very, very calming fragrance. I think I sort of naturally do this anyway with fragrance. It's when I wake up in the morning, I'm in the shower and, I'm deciding what I want to wear. I'm thinking about how I want to make myself feel. So it might be I'm going into the office and I want to make myself feel a little bit confident. And so I'll wear a fragrance that I feel is going to boost my confidence. We mentioned just before we opened the show that Robin and I will often select a fragrance to go to bed and go to sleep, which might sound a little bit odd, but it's what we do. But we select a fragrance that calms our nerves after maybe a stressful day. And that helps us sleep a little bit more. But it's very, very clear with your fragrances what the intent is, which I absolutely love.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's no surprise. I mean, I think that a lot of people sort of have a really wonderful affinity to how scent transports memory and how it takes them back to a certain moment or a certain person. And that's really because scent is the only one of our senses that isn't processed through the cortex of the brain. It's processed through the amygdala. And the amygdala is the exact same part of the brain that's responsible for memory, which, a lot of fragrance houses harness, but it's also the part of the brain that's emotion and mood. And that's really why scent and mood play such an important role. But then obviously at Tulita, we encompass that and enrich that even further by taking the Vedic qualities and bringing the chakra harnessing energetics to it, in as well as where it's actually processed scientifically in the brain. So it's, I completely resonate with what you're saying because, it's scientifically proven that it's, responsible for triggering different moods and emotions and memories.
Fantastic. Well, I've got to say thank you so much for taking us.
What a joy.
It's just
been be here all week.
Absolutely. It's been an amazing journey, right? Yes. So if we have learned so much, I think, from this episode and really sort of deep diving into the notes, but also getting a better understanding of the brand and what you really stand for.
Yeah.
So we've spoken about sustainability. We've spoken about upcycling. We've spoken about, sort of balance and transparency and ethical sourcing. But one thing I want to just drill into just a little bit more before we let you go is this idea of, the clean ocean movement. I believe that you are involved with the Ocean Cleanup Initiative.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit more about that.
Oh, great question. So, as I was mentioning during Blue Beauty, one of the elements that we're really passionate about is the plastic crisis and how beauty and single-use plastics are just, creating havoc. And so not only do we work, at solving the problem at the root cause of not contributing and removing down to 0.05, I came across this amazing organization, the Ocean Cleanup, and they've set themselves this huge goal about basically removing 80% of floating plastics by 2040. And so they're an organization that is basically, almost like ships moving through the ocean and catching and capturing the floating plastic that's moving all through our ocean and damaging marine life. So they're an amazing organization. They've got lots of ambitious plans about, taking it, global and moving into rivers and deeper waterways. But yeah, I guess for me, being a mom and being a parent, I really wanted to create something that did good in the world, and that in, maybe 20, 30 years time, my kids can, be really proud to be maybe part of Tulita as well. And, we'll probably have moved and evolved even further in terms of what sustainability looks like. But for me, I just wanted to challenge every facet, every notion. How can we go further and further and further and further? And that's just a never ending quest for me. Like, it won't stop here. It's, a constant challenge that I put on myself and the business about what we can be doing to reduce our footprint, and also helping fix the problem that already exists. So the ocean cleanup is a very integral role in that.
I love the mission. Leave the world a better place.
Yeah. Amazing legacy to leave your children as well. Absolutely. Yeah. It's very inspiring.
Thank you.
So I guess we will want to know, where can the listeners find these beautiful products?
Oh, wonderful. So we have our website where we have discovery kits, which is a wonderful way to discover all 5 scents and try them on your skin. We always hear how surprising they are. A lot of people that don't like rose fragrances end up loving Vicasa, which is a rose fragrance, because of how well we've balanced it. So the discovery kit is a really wonderful way to try it. So our website, www.tulita.co, but we've also got some wonderful stockists, and you can see those stockists on our website if you want to touch and hold and feel the bottle, the crystal. So yeah, there's some great stockists all around Australia that you can find on our website as well.
Fantastic. We mentioned, Law, that's how we discovered your brand.
Yes.
Wonderful perfumery, great way to get hands on.
Absolutely incredible.
They are amazing.
You'll be well taken care of.
Absolutely, extremely knowledgeable. So they can talk you through the fragrances as well. And we highly recommend that you do get hands on.
They also really love Agati.
They really do. Fantastic. So for our listeners and for our viewers, you might not have been able to write down that website in time. So what we're going to do is, on the bottom of your screen now, we're going to put the Tulita website right at the bottom of your screen. What we'll do for our listeners is we'll embed the website into the description on Spotify and also on Apple Music, so that you can grab those details directly from the links there. Now, popping up on your screen will also be a QR code that you can scan that will take you to our website, which is olfactive.com.au, and we will have all of Tulita's contact details there. So the website, all of the socials, so you can just click through straight from our website, straight through to Tulita and discover that for yourself. And again, we highly recommend that you get the Discovery Pack. Try these on your skin. We're doing our best to describe what's going on our skin and on the bottles, but there is no substitution for actually trying the fragrances yourselves. And of course, you can try Agati, come back to this podcast and go through the masterclass yourself and experience it just as we have today.
So finally, Lucy, if we could also find out from you if there's anything you have in the pipeline or anything like to share with us.
So no surprise, there's 7 chakras, or 7 primary chakras. So we're working on our 6th fragrance at the moment, which will be the sacral chakra. So this wonderful energy of like passion and sexuality and creativity. So it will be a very intoxicating, carnal-esque, floral, interesting fragrance. Yeah, it's going to be really good. It's coming along beautifully. So I don't know when, but it'll be soon.
It sounds super, and definitely something to look forward to.
Yes.
It sounds like that's one I need to invest in. Sure. So fantastic. Well, Lucy, thank you so much. Thank you for being so generous with both your time and with your knowledge today. We really appreciate it. So do our viewers. You've really taken the time to educate us. So thank you so much.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you from me as well. Absolutely loved the time that we spent together, and I've really enjoyed hearing the intention behind the fragrances. It's absolutely beautiful brand, and very much appreciate your time tonight. And thank you to all of our listeners as well. We hope that you've enjoyed tonight's show. And don't forget to subscribe and to leave us with a review if you'd like to. If not, we'll see you next time for another amazing fragrance and the stories behind it.
Thank you. Bye-bye.